Pro's average rank of 33. He will cost you 22 on ESPN. That is where he shows up. 39 on Yahoo, 45 on Fantrax. Not even close. He is really expensive, which what it means is, and I don't actually think the rank is like that crazy or anything like that, because I'm a believer in what Corey Seager did last year in the hard hit. But you ain't going to get any discounts on him. You're going to pay a late second to an early third on ESPN. We've got a legit opportunity of 4th and 5th rounds on the other formats.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why. And I thought that maybe, okay, we just did this points draft on ESPN with Joe, and Joe was taking guys like Michael Brantley, who's also high, Lorenzo Cain, who's also expensive on ESPN. And I thought, okay, maybe this is points based and your big strikeout guys are going to be lower. Absolutely not the case, because Byron Buxton is number 2 on here. Miguel Sano is on this list as expensive. So Austin Riley, guys even with high strikeout rates are still expensive on ESPN. So I that was my initial hypothesis going in, and maybe that is part of it, but it's not the whole of it. So Seager just more expensive.
I'm curious because the only thing I don't see here, this is what stands out to me. I don't see any other shortstops costing a higher dollar amount. Like there's nobody. There's no other shortstop. There's no Mondesi. There's none of the top guys. There's none of the mid-round guys. No Correa. So there's not like a trend. It is specifically an ESPN algorithm to Corey Seager.
And what else don't you see? What position do you not see on this all in the cheap in the expensive section?
Well, I see one, but I don't see starting pitchers.
Yes, the only cheap starting pitcher or the only expensive starting pitcher on this list is Chris Sale. Yeah. They have him at 204, where Fantrax has him at 230. Yahoo has him at 250. After that, no starting pitchers in a points format, which is kind of surprising. I think this might be just to suppress.
What do you mean in a points format? What do you mean?
I mean, because their basic thing is points.
Is it?
Yeah. When you sign up for ESPN, their basic scoring is points. It starts at points. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yahoo is head to head. Fantrax is Roto.
I would have thought ESPN would have went to Roto and Yahoo would have gone to head to head.
No. When you your initial sign up, start a new league, click on it. It's 10-team points.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is. I think it's the same for basketball as well. Is 10-team points. I think they do that for pretty much every sport. I mean, football's points always, but so I think that might be to suppress starting pitchers in those leagues. But it is crazy that it's just Chris Sale, an injured pitcher, and then when we look at the deals, there are hitter deals. But it's mainly starting pitchers.
Well, so there's a trend. So you're going to get better pitching deals when you go to ESPN. You're going to pay up for some hitters. The hitters, the rhyme or reason isn't quite there. It would have been interesting to see what the projection on ESPN for Corey Seagers. You know how they have those do they have the projection page up yet? I don't know if they've done that.
No, I don't think so.
Those are interesting. Like, what did that? Because I just expected maybe a little bit of a trend, and there was no trend for Corey Seager, but he pops up 22 on their list, which is more than a full round, or if it's even a 15 round teamer. That's more than a full round than any other format that you're going to have to pay for Corey Seager. Byron Buxton.
Okay, actually, I tell you what, I do have the projected stats. Do you want to pull up Fantasy Pros, and I'll give you the ESPN projected stats?
Why do you want Fantasy Pros?
Or not Fangraphs, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Too many fans. Yeah. Fantasy Pros, Fangraphs. Only fans. That's right. Too many fans.
I got Corey Seager Fangraphs up.
Okay, so tell me his runs.
Should we use the Bat X?
Yeah, use the Bat X.
All right, Bat X runs are 101.
98, so that's pretty close.
Okay.
RBI?
105.
104. Walks?
I don't know.
I don't know why we have walks.
Yeah, why? Who cares about walks?
Strikeouts.
Well, who cares? Let's just do the main 5 category ones. What's batting average?
For whatever reason, this one doesn't have. I think it's because this one doesn't have homers. Let me see. It's because it's points and it goes by total bases. So if you hit a homer, you get
what's more important than that? All right. Well, by the way, the Bat X has him at 33. So he's 33 homers, 100 runs and RBIs, and a 282 batting average. I mean, it's not justified. It's just
29 here and 2 stolen bases and a 287 average.
Okay, so check this out. They project him as a 22nd overall player, and he has lower projections on theirs than the Bat X has him.
Yeah, that's
I know.
Very true.
I'm still not 100% following. Again, I'm not an arguer against Corey Seager. It's just you don't get much of a discount. Byron Buxton, he comes in at 94 on ESPN. He's 112 on Yahoo, 130 on Fantrax. He has a Fantasy Pros average consensus rank of 119. So again, you are paying up for the power hitting semi-breakout of Buxton, though he didn't steal bases last year.
They've got him for 20 on the ESPN projections. 20. Hitting 250 with 23 homers, 70 RBI, and weird runs. 71 runs. So they have him going 23 homers, 20 swipes. So that's got to be why he's so high.
Bat X, 28 homers, 19 stolen bases, 84 runs, 73 RBIs, and a 247 batting.
So I think what happened here is they adjusted their projections because their projections were very strange when we were looking at them. So I think that's probably what they did.
Maybe.
They probably got closer to the Bat X because, I mean, look, ESPN opened up and then wasn't the Bat X projections up like 2 days after that?
No, I think it was out before because we did the episode with Cardi way before we did the mock. So
and the Bat X was already done.
Bat X was already done, just not for pitchers or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe they're just using. Maybe they changed their projections. Maybe it's based on the Bat X. I don't know, but
doesn't matter.
Those numbers seem to be fairly close now. And there were just some wild projections when we were looking before. Yeah,
the Jared Oliva, like 25 stolen bases, just assuming he had the starting time. Some other players here on the expensive of ESPN. Michael Brantley, going to cost you a top 120. He's 121 on Fantasy Pros as a rank. He's 146 on Yahoo, 158 on Fantrax. So this is the closest we've had to where he's ranked to actually where our people are ranking him. So like where you have to draft him on ESPN at 118, where he's 121 on Fantasy Pros. The other sites, it's just a deal on him.
Yeah, by the way, they have Jared Oliva for 33 stolen bases now. So,
listen, if he starts every single game, if he's the outfielder, I don't actually disagree with that. I think Jared...
They got him for 417 at-bats. How many at-bats? Let me look on Fangraphs.
Oh, look. I'm already here. So, I mean, I don't know. He starts and he's the everyday outfielder. Bat X has him for 37 games, 6 stolen bases with 3 homers, and he gets 37 games under his belt. Maybe break it even. Like maybe he plays 60. He's just not going to break camp. But he's a great base runner. Run baser. You actually hear James Anderson and I interviewed him on Prospect One, all of it like 2 years ago, and we talked about base stealing, and like it's a point of pride for him, and he's actually kind of developed bigger body. He can hit homers. That guy is exciting. He could be a late bloomer. He's probably most likely going to be because he's already 25.
I think the issue is just not knowing the fact that the Pirates hate anyone that's under 32 years old.
But also, their outfield, I think it's kind of set right now. I don't have the depth chart up, but I feel like the Pirates outfield was already set and Oliva is not locked in. So I
don't know. I kind of like the upside because the Pirates are so bad. You know, it's the Pirates and the Orioles are going to be in a race for the worst record in baseball, most likely. So, there's opportunity there. It's Reynolds, it's Anthony Alford, and it's Polanco right now, who broke his wrist in the Winter League.
It's not somebody else? Didn't they move like Kevin Newman to the outfield or something?
No, they've got Phillip Evans on the bench with Eric Gonzalez playing infield and outfield, according to Roster Resource. And then the guys on
Cole Tucker. See. No, Cole Tucker is playing in the outfield right now. He's not in the infield.
Well, they don't have him
on the roster. Well,
on Roster Resource, they don't even have him.
Yeah, Cole Tucker probably plays in the either way. Interesting point. If Oliva does break camp, it's something to watch, but there's no guarantees. And if you see 30-something stolen bases, he's going to go crazy high. I have suggested him to people in some of those deeper draft and hold leagues when you get really down there because of that point, but it's hard to project where he's going to go. He was on the alt. He was like traveling on the what was it? Not the alt camp, but like the taxi squad. He was part of the taxi squad for a bit, but he never got to play any games. I'm just not sure they handed over to him. So it's a little bit wild. Let's keep going.
They got O'Neal Cruz on the 40-man as well.
Well, yeah, he had to be, but he's not going to break the roster. Kirby Yates going to cost you a bunch of money on ESPN. 125 goes 184 on Yahoo, past 200 on Fantasy Fantrax, 158 Fantasy Pros rank. That's a close you're going to have to pay out for. You mentioned Miguel Sano. I'm just going to go through a couple more of these. Miguel Sano, 134. That's 40 spots higher than Yahoo, 50 spots higher than ESPN, and about 20 spots higher than his Fantasy Pros rank. Justin Turner, another one of those, 164, where he is going outside the top 200 on the other couple formats, yet he is right in line with Fantasy Pros. So Sano, Yates, Turner, any thoughts or feelings? I hate the Sano one, 134. It's a total points league thing. It's not any other format. I just wouldn't do it.
It's just kind of, I think he's the most surprising because I think the rest of these guys are kind of, low strikeout total guys. A lot of them, even Austin Riley, going off at 176.
It's not a low strikeout. I mean, I don't like
207, but he lowered his strikeout rate last year. It went from like 34 to 23.
So you really seem to think this is like a points driven thing.
I think a lot of it is, but there are also a mix of guys in here that strike out. So it's a little strange, and it's clearly not going based on their projections. Or Jared Oliva would be at like in the at least the top 150. He's going to steal 33 bases. So
I mean that would be probably like one of the 10 best in all of baseball.
So I can't really pin down what it is. It's not. I think things moved because of projections, but I think also because John VR got buried here, and he's not buried in Fantrax. Obviously, he got buried here. And he hasn't moved down in Yahoo either yet, as I was looking at it. So I think this was more people doing their own thing in the background. I don't think it was based on projections, even though theirs have changed. And I don't think it's specifically for points leagues either, because we have some guys moving that aren't great points leagues players. But for the most part, I think that they do their initial ranks based on points, and I think that's why those guys are more expensive.
Jared Walsh at 168 on ESPN is so dramatically higher than any other. You've got Austin Riley going about 40 spots higher than any other site. Austin Hayes over 50 spots higher on ESPN at 186. Lorenzo Cain, there's another 50 spot, 201 on ESPN. We told you about Chris Sale. Raimel Tapia, I know he's kind of a sleeper for a lot of people. Rocky's kind of opening up the roster a little bit. He's going to cost you 205, over 50 spots higher than what Fantasy Pros ranks or any other site. And then your boy David Peralta, 70 spots
looks like I just
higher.
started.
I know. Did you help rank
at
just
ESPN?
David Peralta?
Yeah. So David Peralta is in the top 300, so I must have been there to do something.
That's kind of crazy. So those are some of the players. Like you said, what's so interesting is there's not quite a trend. Like we've been able to pinpoint trends before. Those dramatic changes are kind of all over the board. Now, there are some deals to be had, some cheaper players on ESPN. And like you said, it's going to be pitching heavy. And it starts with a pitcher, Corbin Burns, who it actually lines up with his Fantasy Pros rank.
Yeah.
Both of those, though, I think these are so misleading. And that's why we do this as well. To not just pinpoint the deals and the expensive players, but to also don't get a sense of comfort. If you only played on ESPN and paid attention to Fantasy Pros and you thought Corbin Burns was gettable in 80s, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's not going to happen. Corbin Burns 80 on ESPN, 80 on Fantasy Pros, 61 on Yahoo, 55 on Fantrax, and I'll bet you if you popped up NFBC, he's probably inside the top 60 as well. So,
and it's really funny because I ordered these of where they are on ESPN, right? Burns being the most expensive of the players on this list at 80, but on Fantasy Pros, he has one of the biggest discrepancies in his ranking. Fantasy Pros high is 48.
Wow.
His low is 151.
Wow.
And you have to go all the way down to, just on this list, down to Framber Valdez, who is almost 40 spots lower, 39 spots lower than Corbin Burns, to find someone with a lower low than him, because Zach Plesac at 114, his low is 143, and then we have Valdez at 181. So it's kind of funny how big the difference is. Him at as high as 48 and as low as 151. That's nuts.
An interesting strategy thing that would happen to you too is, let's say you were a primary ESPN player and you mock and you do drafts there and you mock, and then you're like, you know what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go play an NFBC like Champs League. I'm going to drop $150. Guess what you would have a rude awakening for? The pitchers you think you can get later. And that's another key to this. If you think you can get Framber in the 140s, you can get Corbin Burns at 80. Here's a couple other pitchers. Steven Strasburg, 96 on ESPN. He's Fantasy Pro 68, 70, and 60 on the other site. Sonny